Good evening. This is Count Spankula. We're here again. The poor mortal souls who couldn't be here, so we're here tonight. But Countess Boobera is here.
Good evening.
Oh, Countess Boobera, say hello to everyone.
Hello to the chat. How is everybody? Everybody's looking good as far as I can see.
What are you doing here? What? You're here again? Oh,
what is going on?
Oh, God. Oh, come here. Oh, Boo Bear, let's get these people out of here. We got to do the show. Come on, Atticus. Get him, Atticus. Get him. Get him, boy. Oh, come here. Come here, you. Come here. Oh, come here. Oh. That's right. We got him out of here. Ooh, boy. You all right, Boo Boo Bear?
I'm fine. Who were those people?
Well, you know who
were those people?
You know who they were. It was Count Spankula and Countess Boobera. They showed up a few years ago on a Halloween show, and we were late. And we're late again, and here they are. I don't know what it is about Halloween or those two, but anyway, here you are. Welcome to the Road Less Traveled with Gary L. and Gigi's Boo. Woo, we made it.
Yes, we're here.
Woo, what a fight that was, you know.
All you have to say is something to Atticus, and he's ready to go.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, all you had to say was, get him, Atticus, and there you go. You got. Last time I saw Count Spankula going out the window with Atticus hanging on his butt. So. That's
good.
So how you doing? How you doing, Gigi's Boo?
Doing really good. It's turned off like cold. We got snow in the Highlands here.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, just 80 miles up the road, it's just peppering snow. So the Highlands are getting covered early. I knew where they're going to start early. I've been watching the weather signs and the whole 9 yards. And Gary says I watch those signs constantly, and I do. I watch them real well.
Signs everywhere. Signs breaking up the snow. Messing up the scenery, I think, and breaking our minds. That's an old song, Boo Boo Bear. That's probably before your time.
I don't recall it.
I don't remember who did that. I think Grimner probably knows who did that song. I don't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, I hope everyone's well out there in Real Liberty Mediaville. And it's Halloween, as we have discovered by, unfortunately, those two just seem like to jump out when you least expect it. That's what happens when you can't leave anything alone, And of course, they brought Atticus weenies, and so he didn't cause any trouble until we started causing trouble. You know how he is. As long as he gets a weenie.
He's happy.
Yeah.
I had a little escapade this week.
Yeah, what about that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I missed him. I couldn't find him anywhere. And I said, that's it. He's got out. Got in the car. My sisters got in the car. I had Gary on the phone. I said, he is gone. We were looking everywhere. And guess what? Here he comes. Cop pulls up. His buddy. He rolls down the window. He said, are y'all missing this guy? There he sat in the cop car with his seatbelt on. He picked him up about 3 blocks away. And as well as we can tell, all he wanted to do was get out and kind of roam around. But, Atticus likes all females. And he said he found a pretty girl up the road. So we're having to be careful about girls. So he got out and was gone. What, Gary? About an hour and a half before we found him.
Yeah, he had to go for a little walkabout.
Yeah, he don't need to do that and scare me to death.
But like I said, he was apparently heading back home. He was on the way back toward the house. So he just went out walking around, seeing what you could see, I guess. If you
Got to do a little whoop whoop in the police car, as he calls it.
That's right. Well, what can you do? And Grimner answered the question about the song, and that was made by the 5-man electrical band. Ha! That's right. It's been a minute or two since that song was out. It was actually quite popular back in the day, and I guess it could still be popular today, considering the way things are. So we'll say hello to everybody in the chat room. Let's do that. And by the way, this is the 29th of October, 2017. And hello to Moose Girl. Moose Girl's here. She was talking earlier, talking about getting a new router hooked up. Yes, and I guess she can go out and sit next to the swimming pool in the backyard with her laptop and suck on a margarita and do Freaker's Ball. And of course, then there's Asmo and Grimnir, I think I said, and Betsy and Bitcoin Bob, Charleston, Chloe, C, Vertical Stroke, OE, which I suspect is a pseudonym for Chloe, and Dakota, and Ivy Dauncey, and Java Doctor, and JJ is in the chat room, Juana Taco, Paul Bunyan, Kate, Rain, Robworks, Trust No One, Behind the Woodshed's here. Hello, Hal. Colfax, Dan, 10EC, we were talking pre-show, Dima, Frumpy, Gigi's Boo, Jehovah, Kozu, Moi, Proxified, Pawn Sauce, Sock Puppet, hello, Slim Jim Flim, and the Phantom. And that's, that crowd at RLM, reallibertymedia.com in the chat room. Now, if you guys out there, I'll tell you what, I know a lot of you guys are listening, but you never come to the chat room. Come on. Yeah, come in and say hello to everyone. I guarantee you that most don't bite. There might be a couple who do. She's on the DDWRT. I don't know that I know what that is. But I'm sure it'll be clarified. But anyway, that's say hello to all these folks out there. Chat room. If you want to come to the chat room, come to reallibertymedia.com. And about halfway down the page, there's a chat applet. Just put a name in there or not. Just hit enter. Come on in. And say hello to all these wonderful folks here. I mean, they live here. And they'd like to have company sometimes. It's a little bit like a retirement home. No, not really. Jeez, what? No. But they'd like to have company. Say hello, new folks. Always nice to see a new face. And you can come in and say most anything you want, as long as you do it
respectfully.
Yeah, just don't be ignorant, as they say where we're from. Ignorant, right, boo boo?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's about all's been going on this week. That, as far as I know, anything else that you can think of?
No, not right off. I can't.
Yeah, it's been a relatively sedate week. Not much going on. Yeah, other than, I guess I have to talk about this briefly. As many of you who are Twitter followers know, I kind of kicked off, and this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, I guess. I mean, anything can happen. It could pick up, but I doubt that it will. But it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing called Operation Censored. And I originally called it Project Censored, but it turns out that there's already a Project Censored, so I don't want to cross swords with those guys. So I altered it to Operation Censored, and that sources back to an event that occurred on Facebook. And it was actually the very first time. I mean, I've been a Facebook member for a lot of years, and never once had any issue with, major issue at any rate, with being censored or anything like that, until I became involved in a conversation about the release of the JFK documents.
Oh man.
Yeah, or the not so many released, or whatever the situation turns out to be. And so I started to add some factual information, and it's factual, and because it's been well researched, that points towards certain foreign state participation in the events of the JFK assassination, and immediately those posts were marked as spam and knocked out of view. Well, you know me. I mean, that's like you just declared war, buddy. And what that also does is it shows that you're right over the target, because that's where the flak is the heaviest, right? So they're bots, and it had to be bots because it like happened instantly, because certain countries were named, and certain countries that everyone seems to be so sensitive about for some bizarre reason. But it's not really so bizarre, because you've been programmed and brainwashed all these years to think certain ways. But the bots just blocked it. And I said, oh, thanks for verifying the accuracy of the information. So as a result, I did some things like take photo images of the information and created the Operation Censored hashtag and pushed it over to Twitter, and pushed it over to Google Plus, and pushed it over to a lot of other places, and used the images, the pictures, which haven't been censored, but contain the same information. So, you know, you want to play, and we talked about this yesterday on our weekly discussion video podcast, whatever, with Suspect Sky and Xavier. And we talked about this very troubling trend and the use of artificial intelligence with Google, with YouTube, with Facebook, Yahoo, all these places, and where those are being used to censor people and to control the message. And it's just yesterday, I'm not including this tonight in the show notes, because the show tonight's supposed to be a little bit lighter than usual, I guess. But just to touch on this, there's a Soros-based company that is going to be contracting with Google to create the filters to vet the news that comes out on all these social medias. So you can imagine how that's going to go. How that's going to work out. Well, you know, there are two things going on. One is you have the controlled media, the corporate media, the corporate lame-ass propaganda media, as Grimner likes to call it. You have those guys, and they control the message on that end. So, you know, everyone pretty much stays on the same sheet of music. And then you have unfortunately, the infiltrated, corrupted alternative media that likes to take you on a wild goose chase. So the only things left is trying to figure out how to control everyone else that's not included. So now we add in a layer of technological control on the very medium that was supposed to be free and open access and sharing of information, which was apparently a major threat to many. So anyhow, that's what's going on. And if you happen to see the Operation Censored hashtag, please reproduce it and send it forward. I mean, it'd be nice to see that. Just at least we're kind of poking the middle finger at them, if that's all we can do. Anyway, thanks so much. And speaking of corporate lame and whatever, Gigi's Boo, do you know? I mean, you're familiar with Chipotle, right? The Chipotle restaurant. Now, they went all organic, or non-GMO should probably be the right word. They went all, non-GMO. So if you go to Chipotle, you're going to get a good meal. And there's some good stuff there. It's a great restaurant. Well, you know how sour grapes go in this world of corruption, for lack of a better. The Intercept reports that Bank of America Merrill Lynch downgraded Chipotle's stock and warned investors that the stock will underperform, complaining that the restaurant chain is paying its workers too much money, and it'll be really hard for them to cut the costs further. What? What do you think about that attack, Gigi's Boo?
Well, they're always doing something.
Yeah. They say, quote, "We are downgrading Chipotle to underperform from neutral, as we believe, assuming no significant tax reform, that 2018 and 2019 consensus EPS, expected price per share, I guess that is, needs to drop at least 10%. Analyst Gregory Frankfort told CNBC Wednesday. "We believe further gains from trimming hours will prove difficult, which limits the opportunity to get labor below 27% of sales even if traffic recovers." Bank of America analysis cut the 2017 earnings estimate from $7.60 to $7.40, and the 2018 estimate from $10.50 to $9.50, according to the report. But Chipotle CEO Steve Ells raked in $15.7 million in 2016. Non-executives are not getting rich stuffing tortillas at Chipotle. The typical worker makes a little more than $9 an hour. And he goes on to say, we continue to pay wages and offer benefits that are competitive and that reflect the priorities of our employees. And with a commitment to developing and promoting people from within, we are providing significant opportunities for advancement. Well. I'm sure that all that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that they don't participate in the poison food exchange. You have any thoughts along those lines, Gigi's Boo?
A little over my head right now. Go ahead. I'm all right. Go ahead.
How about let's lighten up a little bit, upside, downside. How about, a lot of people make fun of obese folks, and that's really not nice.
No, it's not.
It's not nice. But a kind of a funny story came out of the Native Americans or the Indigenous Club website. And it seems that a 640-pound man and his 450-pound wife had a rather unusual accident last night, as the floor of their apartment collapsed during a particularly intense sexual intercourse, causing the couple to fall 3 stories through the building. Dear God. Michael Davis and Teresa Walker from Liverpool were having sex in their bedroom on the 3rd floor of an apartment building when the structure collapsed. The couple in their bed fell through 3 floors before bursting through a wall and ending up in a laundry room in the basement of the building. Emergency services were rapidly called to the scene and were able to extract the unlucky lovers from their uncomfortable position. Miraculously, the couple suffered only light injuries, and no other residents of the building were injured, as almost half of the 250-year-old building collapsed.
Dear God, what a story.
I think we'll leave the rest of that alone.
Is that really a story, Gary, or is this just some kind of joke?
No, it's for real. It came from the Native American website. So.
No. That would have been a sight to see. Oh, dear God.
Man, not making fun is just unfortunate, Also, this was a... Go ahead.
Wait a minute. That's like me watching that. We'll watch TV sometimes, and it's my 600 or 700-pound wife. Mm-hmm. And I'll be watching that, and I'll be talking to Gary, and I'll say, oh, dear God, please don't ever let me get that fat. And he says, boo-boo. Hush.
Yeah. Ooh. That's right. Okay, here's another story. This is really instructive. And here's why. Well, I'll just go ahead and we'll go into this. The Navy rescued 2 sailors, 2 dogs, who were stranded in the Pacific Ocean for 5 months. 5 months on a little boat. 2 American sailors and their dogs were overjoyed to be rescued by the U.S. Navy after being lost at sea for 5 months. Jennifer Apple and Tasha Fuaba were discovered about 900 miles southeast of Japan in the Pacific. The women had set off from Hawaii in the spring on a 2,600-mile journey to Tahiti, but on May 30th, their engine died during a bad storm. They thought they could make landfall using the boat's sails. However, they just kind of drifted off course. After 2 months adrift, the pair issued distress signals, but there were no ships close enough to hear them. On Tuesday, a Taiwanese fishing boat discovered the women and their craft and notified the U.S. Coast Guard, which in turn contacted the Navy. The women waved and blew kisses at the USS Ashland as it approached, having been on a routine patrol in the area. They said the dogs looked pretty relieved. The women and their pets were given food beds and a thorough going over by the ship's medical staff. Now, here's the catch. The women survived thanks to a year's supply of food consisting mostly of dry goods, including oatmeal, pasta, and rice, and water purifiers that they had on board. Well, what do you know about that? You hear so many people saying, oh, why you preppers, why do you do that? What are you going to do with all that food? What are you going to do with, why do you need all that equipment? Well, guess what? It came in handy, didn't it, for these folks, right, Gigi's Boo?
It sure did, and it comes in handy for us, too.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be lost at sea.
No, because you never know what's going to happen. And as the old adage goes, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah, that's right. It's better to have it. And I know one time when I was talking about how I do my meal plans for 2 weeks, and when I prep, I don't necessarily prep and dry apples because you're not crazy about apples. You're more of a cherry pie man. Somebody said he'll eat what he can and he gets hungry. That's true. But it's like this. If you're going to prep what your family eats, what y'all like, prep and put up that way. And then you have people say, don't you know if you have all that food, it's going to spoil? Well, don't you think that we're smart enough to rotate our food? We're preppers. We're smart enough to rotate the older to the front to use. I don't understand people. Go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
That's kind of an understatement, I guess, not understanding folks. It is hard to tell what goes on in the mind of people at times. How about you guys in Canada? Hello, I know we seem to be kind of America-centric much of the time. And this really interesting article came from the CBC. And apparently there's a bank up there called the TD Bank. I'm not familiar with it, but it's apparently a going concern in Canada. And it seems that an insider at the TD Bank said that the bank doesn't want you to know that it's outsourcing its work overseas. The bank says it's upfront with its customers that their information may be handled outside of Canada. Alison Mosher knows a lot of private information about the bank customers whose fraud claims she handles. And now she says that information is going to offshore workers without most people's knowledge. They see your birth date, your Social Security, your social insurance, as they call it, number, whether you have a checking account, a savings account, a line of credit, a mortgage, investments, Visa cards, or anything. They have access to your entire identity. She contacted Go Public after becoming increasingly concerned about the amount of work that the bank had started sending overseas, instead of having it done by employees in the bank's Markham, Ontario Fraud Claims Department. Over the past 2 years, Mosher says work has been transferred to people working in Hyderabad and Chennai, India. Go Public has confirmed those contract workers are employed by the outsourcing giant Tata Consultancy Services. TD advertises a lot about trust, says Mosher. Customers are giving the bank a lot of personal information, trusting that it's in the right hands. And it goes on to talk about complaints filed with the privacy commissioners in Canada and so forth and so on. So, more of the internationalization, the globalization, I guess. But here it is. They have all your information and everything that you never probably intended for someone in another country, India in this particular case, to have. It makes you wonder who else does this. Is this going on in other places? And Jesus, Boo, you've had experiences just recently, I think, talking
on what?
I said you've had experiences just recently, I think, talking to customer service in another country.
Oh, good Lord. I can't understand a word they're saying. It's terrible. Our Vonage went out one night, and I called 3 times, and they hung up on me. And I told them the last time I called, I said, if you hang up this phone on me one more time, you will no longer have my business. I will cancel it right now. And they started talking to me, but it's like, oh my God, it's almost like, well, it is talking to somebody in another world. They don't comprehend what you're saying and what you're asking. They just don't know.
No, it's pretty wild. It took how many? Three tries to get someone to not hang up?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
they
turn
the service off.
Yeah, they literally hung up. It's like, wow. Okay, but at any rate, I think the thing is, all your personal information is floating all over the place. I think anyone who thinks otherwise is somewhat self-delusional. But this is like in your face. He goes to a contracting company. I mean, for a long time, all your international phone calls were being handled, billing was being handled by a company in another country. So that's been going on for quite a while. People just don't know it. And, I guess most people really don't care. But here's a scam, another scam. This was actually a pretty interesting story from the Daily Berries. It's a new scam that happens when you go to a hotel. Here's how it kind of works. You arrive at the hotel and you check in at the front desk, okay? And usually when you check in, you give the front desk your credit card, right, for you to put your room charges on. But they don't keep the card. You just, they just put it, they keep the information and give you back the card. Then you go to your room and you settle in, everything's fine, okay? However, then, for example, the hotel will receive a telephone call and the caller will ask for example, room 620, which happens to be your room. Your phone rings, you answer it, and the person on the other end says, "This is the front desk. When checking in, we came across a problem with your credit card information. Please reread me your credit card numbers and verify the last 3 digits on the reverse of the card." That's your security code. The average person, not thinking anything amiss, since the call seems to come from the front desk, you go ahead and give them the information. But actually, it's a scam by someone calling from outside the hotel. They've asked for a random room number, then ask you for your credit card and address information. That is very, very interesting. And that's what's going on. And trust me, these people are very good at what they do, and they're very convincing even when you challenge them. So that's something to keep in mind. Not a pleasant thing to have your information stolen, is it, Gigi's Boo?
That's right.
Not pleasant at all. So how you doing, Gigi's Boo?
I'm okay.
All right. Okay. How about this? This actually came from Fox 5 site in Atlanta. Pretty neat story. It seems that for some time, this gentleman named Brennan Jones, he's a barber, or has barber skills, I suppose, and he would go out and on the street and give free haircuts to the homeless folks. He thought he might have, he might have to stop his mission helping others. Let's see, how's this go? The man who dedicated his time giving free haircuts to the homeless thought he might have to stop his mission helping others. And all that changed when a stranger stepped in with an incredible act of kindness. Now, the Fox 29 folks met Brennan Jones nearly a year ago. They found him on the street giving haircuts that he thought was his mission to do so. He said that, personally, I think I surpassed 1,000 haircuts, so many I stopped counting. So it's been a good year so far. The good work of people like Brennan is often told, but it's not always shared, and, unless other people get involved and get the word out. And it seems like a fellow by the name of Sean Johnson did get the word. He said, when I found out about the good work of Mr. Jones, I decided I needed to be a part of that, and he needed to see what he could do to help. Sean Johnson wanted to help, so he decided to give a fully renovated, basically new barbershop that will offer services to those in need to Brennan Jones. So he gave Brennan Jones his own barbershop for free. And Brennan said he was absolutely amazed. He said, "Listen, I've got a building I want you to come check out." And he said, "Do you like this place?" I said, "Yeah, I like it." He tossed me the keys and said, "It's yours."
Isn't that nice?
Sean Johnson himself knows about the path from struggle to success. He had to rebuild his own life. When I was in prison, I went to school and learned how to cut hair. My mother paid for my license, and I'm not going to let my mom down. From incarceration to successful owner of Taper's Barbershop, Johnson planned on expanding on Old York Road to another shop he bought and renovated. But meeting Brennan changed all that. He's experienced success and now says he's more focused on community significance. So, you see, you can make a difference, can't you, Judy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can.
And where does it happen? It happens at home, doesn't it?
Exactly right.
We get so wound up about so many different things that We overlook what's going on right next door. Anybody ever wonder why? I know sock puppets. I haven't seen him say anything. But I bet he would know the answer to this. Let's see if anyone else does. Why are there diamonds on your measuring tape? The metal measuring tape. Why are there diamonds on there? There are all kinds of little marks and different colored letters and all numbers and all that stuff. But what are the diamonds for?
I have no idea.
Yeah. If you look closely at the measuring tape, you'll see black diamonds every so often. Whether you've always wondered what they were, or maybe you didn't even know they were there. So let's find out what they're about. It turns out these black diamonds can actually help you when you're remodeling your home, hanging something heavy or anchoring a piece of furniture. For every 8-foot section of your wall, there should be 6 studs placed 16 inches apart. That's assuming it's built to standard. That's why there are red numbers highlighted every 16 inches. Okay? So you have the stud distances marked in red numbers. If you use the tape measure, you can note exactly where the studs are by using the red numbers and marking the studs with a pencil. Now here's where the black diamonds come into play. They represent the middle of the studs. So it's okay to determine the distance between the studs, but then you have to figure out what's the middle of the stud. I mean, how many of you have kind of estimated, I guess, exactly where the stud is, driven a nail and missed it, or skint the side of the stud or whatever. But the black diamond tells you exactly the center. And it starts at the 19.2 inch mark. The black diamond helps you find the center of the first stud. The next black diamond is 19.2 inches away from the first stud, so forth and so on. And the diamonds go all the way out to the 96 inch mark, or 8 feet. Okay, so that is the trick with that for you guys that like to do it yourself and wondered what those diamonds are for. Yeah, that's right, Rob. That's the standard distance, but this gives you the exact center, so that way you don't miss the stud when you're shooting a nail or driving a nail, or running a screwdriver or an electric drill to put screws in. Yeah. GGB, you don't do much carpentry work, do you?
Heavens no, I don't do it.
This was a weird story, but it kind of gets into lifestyle stuff, and I guess the question, it's kind of like the stuff that, why the real reason behind why women started shaving their their legs and their pits. Okay, there were reasons for that, and it was all, believe it or not, fashion reasons. The leg shaving started as a result to the use of nylon stockings, and of course the hemlines came up and nylon stockings came in, and the people who designed these things suggested that it would be a good idea to remove the hair. So that's the source of that. And then you had the whole underarm shaving thing that really wasn't fashionable until they came out with sleeveless dresses and sleeveless tops. And that's where that came from. Again, the fashion industry convinced people that was something you needed to do. And now we consider it kind of an article of faith, that that's just what you do. Kind of like the same thing with yards, having a well-manicured yard, a lawn, if you will. That all roots back to the time where everyone started to admire people like the Vanderbilts, who had the fine manicured lawns. And prior to that, people had, they just cut their lawn with a swing blade, or they had gardens everywhere. But everyone wanted to look like the Vanderbilts. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with people's a general increase in the standard of living. Probably had something to do with this. But then people started mowing their lawns and fertilizing and putting that nasty-ass Roundup all over the place, killing each other. So, yeah. Anyway, this story talks about marriage. To us today, marriage, it makes us think of, the sweet young couples standing side by side, loving each other while dreaming of being surrounded by many children until their last dying days. Your family probably hopes and prays that you'll be blessed with such a beautiful union, although history shows they should be careful what they wish for. And the story goes on to talk about that biblically, a traditional marriage had been defined by a state instituted and ordained by God for the lifelong relationship between one man as husband and one woman as wife. However, our ancestors hoped for in a traditional marriage isn't quite the roses and white picket fence that they believe it to be. Even though the definition of marriage as an agreement between two people has never changed, if you look into the history, it seems it's kind of a traditional marriage probably has. There are 15 surprising facts about marriage in the old days that leave traditionalists kind of, shaken to their core. For example, people did not marry for love. In a traditional marriage, love was considered a childish notion that had no place in a marriage. A conservative once predicted that marrying for love would destroy the institution. In ancient Rome, it was believed to be inappropriate for husbands and wives to be in love. Seneca, the philosopher, said that there was nothing more impure than a man loving his wife like a mistress. The advice in the 1700s was to get married to someone you could tolerate. But it wasn't until the 1920s that people started marrying for love en masse, coining the term love marriage. And this article goes on, if these sorts of things interest you, it's quite detailed. For example, the fact that most of us know that women had no rights. In a traditional marriage, not only did a woman not have a say in family decisions, she didn't have any rights either. After centuries of prejudice, finally in 1971, Ruth Bader Ginsburg fought for a woman's rights within a marriage. This led to the abolishment of the existing law that during a dispute, males must be preferred to females. Furthermore, it was only in 1979 when head and master laws were abolished in most states, which stated that a husband could do whatever he wanted with his house, his family, and his wife, and her possessions. And I'm going to stop reading it there and just drop it in the chat room for those who might have an interest in this kind of stuff. But would like to, something Gigi's Boo talked about, or somebody talked about, I can't remember who it was, about all this stuff going on about being harassed.
Sexual harassment.
All this stuff is coming out right now. All this distraction coming out about, I was sexually harassed. You had some comments about that pre-show. Would you like to share those?
Yeah, my mother was talking. My mother grew up in the 60s and 70s, and we were talking about all these women that were hollering about sexual harassment. And I'm sure that it does exist, but it wouldn't have to exist if women now could take a good swipe at a sucker who is making sexual advances. I will do it in a minute. I don't care what the outcome is. If I tell somebody no, it means no. And if they keep on at me, there is nothing that will get their attention any quicker than something upside that head. And it could be at a fist, be it a rock in your hand, be whatever. But this stupidity about suing men or women for sexual harassment is totally off the charts. Knock them out, John. It's not going to take you hitting them but maybe twice. They're going to get the hint. I'm not going to mess with this woman anymore because she's not going to take it. But my mother wanted me to bring to light that now if you hit someone, that is an assault or domestic violence, whatever you want to call it, and what setting it will be. Doesn't matter what it is. I can usually take care of myself, and what I can't take care of, Gary can, but he lets me take care of it. First, I just don't believe in all this sexual harassment stuff. What's this guy they've got up, this movie guy? I can't think of his name. I do know he's Jewish by his last name. Nothing against the Jewish people, but they say they've ruined him in Hollywood because he's made so many women's life miserable. by wanting sexual favors.
Oh, that guy, yeah. Who are you talking
Yeah. You could take care of that real quick. Wouldn't take me 5 minutes. I'd get me a stick, what I call a head knocking stick. And I got one. I got a staff here and I've got a stick. Staff can double for a staff and can double to fight with. Whop that sucker upside that head 3 or 4 times and give him a major attitude adjustment, and this stuff would stop.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm the old school. There was
That's
a group that sang this song. Wait a minute. All you guys will remember this. Dr. Hook and the medicine something. But anyway, he sang a song, Baby Makes Her Blue Jeans Walk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mama showed that to me on YouTube, and she said, I want you to see how women dressed back when I was young. They had blue jeans that come all the way up to their waist, excuse me. They were tight. They were not vulgar, but they were tight. Women were braless back then, and they made their blue jeans talk. And in this video, a lot of men were looking and following them and the whole 9 yards. And my mama said nowadays, women would say that's sexual harassment. I don't look at it that way. That woman had a nice figure. She turned heads, and she made men look at her. And they were looking. What's wrong? I mean, women have lost something. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But they want to compete too much with men. You don't need to compete with men. You need to let men do what they're supposed to do, and you play your role. Now, I'm not saying that role is to be subservient or the whole 9 yards. But me, little old Brent Ann, she loves being a woman. I love everything about being a woman. I love the way Gary treats me. I love being a lady. And I think women have lost so much of their sex appeal, the good sex appeal, by becoming so mouthy. When these women were out here wearing these old hats that were supposed to be the JJ hats and hollering that they were nasty women. What? Tell me something. All you men that are in this chat room right now or that are listening to my voice, how many men out there wanted to hear that woman say, who was not, she was an actress. What was her name? Oh, heck. Her mama and sister sang country music. Anyway, that phone, dadgummit. Anyway,
just hang it.
She was hollering all the time about being, yes, I'm a nasty woman. Well, you know what? So you be a nasty woman, but you made a fool out of yourself because she's in turn turned around and said this man sexually harassed her. I don't understand this. I don't understand women and how they are doing now. You know, I just don't. But
yeah, well, maybe that's a good segue, actually, to this next story.
Gary wants to know what, Hal wants to know what the side of your head looks like.
I answered the question. I said, it looks like a 10-inch lodge skillet.
I thought that ringer was off on that phone. I apologize.
It's not like everyone doesn't know what we do this time of night every Sunday night. I mean,
yeah, Judd. That's it. Judd woman. Dan says
Ashley Judd. Ashley Judd.
Ashley Judd. Yeah. She got up now. I'm a nasty woman. Well, you sure are. I don't see anybody wanting you or any of the rest of them out there that's protesting. Be a woman.
Yeah, that's probably
true.
Be
a sensual woman because women are powerful when they're sensual.
Yeah. And it's a good segue into this article that came from Reason.com entitled The Fragile Generation. And they talk about that bad policy and paranoid parenting are making kids too safe to succeed. One day last year, a citizen on a prairie path in the Chicago suburb of Elmhurst came upon a teen boy chopping wood. Not a body, just some already fallen branches. Nonetheless, an onlooker called the cops. And the police came and interrogated the boy, who said he was trying to build a fort for himself and his friends. A local news site reports that the police then took the tools for safekeeping to be returned to the boy's parents. Elsewhere in America, preschoolers at the Learning Collaborative in Charlotte, North Carolina, were thrilled to receive a set of gently used playground equipment. But the kids soon found out they would not be allowed to use it because it was resting on grass, not wood chips. "It's a safety issue," explained the daycare spokeswoman. "Playing on grass is against local regulations." And then there was the inquiry that ran in Parents magazine a few years back, saying that your child's old enough to stay home briefly and often does, but is it okay to leave her and her playmate home while you dash out to the dry cleaner? And the magazine says, absolutely not. Take the kids with you or save your errand for another time. After all, you want to make sure that no one's feelings get too hurt if there's a squabble. The principle here is simple. This generation of kids must be protected like none other. They can't use tools, they can't play on grass, and they certainly can't be expected to work through a spat with a friend. And this, it would be argued, is why we have safe spaces on college campuses and millennials missing adult milestones every day. We told a generation of kids that they can never be too safe, and they believed us. Of course, we have the best of intentions, but these efforts to protect children may be backfiring. So when we raise kids unaccustomed to facing anything on their own, including risk, failure, and hurt feelings, our society and even our economy are threatened. Yet modern child-rearing practices and laws seem all but designed to cultivate this lack of preparedness. There's a fear that everything children see, do, eat, hear, and lick could hurt them. And there's a newer belief that has been spreading through higher education that words and ideas themselves can be traumatizing. How did we ever get to the point that we thought a generation of kids couldn't handle the basic challenges of growing up? In the 1980s, American childhood changed. For a variety of reasons, including shifts in parenting norms, new academic expectations, increased regulation, technological advances, and especially a heightened fear of abduction, the milk carton kids and all that, made people feel that this actually exceedingly rare crime was rampant across the country. Children largely lost the experience of having large amounts of unsupervised time to play, explore, and resolve conflicts on their own. This has left them more fragile, more easily offended, and more reliant on others. They have been taught to seek authority figures to solve their problems and shield them from discomfort, a condition sociologists call moral dependency. Well, and we've talked about that, and other people talk about, there's probably a little bit more to this, there's a little more insidious reason behind this, and that's to make you a willing member of a nanny state, of a situation where everything you do is monitored and regulated, and all in the in the belief that it's for your own good, it's for your own safety, which is a bunch of crap. You see RoboCops out running around, and this is supposed to make you feel safer from that incident that is less likely to occur than you being struck by lightning. I mean, Brennan was talking about women and so forth back in the day, or even today in many cases. As I don't know how much I've shared of this, but my first 5 years, we're Appalachian folks, okay? We grew up in the mountains. And my first 5 years of elementary school was in a community schoolhouse, local community schoolhouses, which they were everywhere. I mean, they were probably within a 10 square mile, 15, maybe 20 square mile area. There were at least 3 of these community schools. And it was a 3-room schoolhouse with a ding-dong bell and a hand pump and outhouses, and a coal bin and and potbelly stoves. And in one room you had the grades 1st through 5th, and in another room you had the 6th and 7th grades. And in the central room was just kind of an extra activity room, depending if the weather was really bad. For recess, which was not only 10 or 15 minutes, I think it is now. What? They keep these kids locked up all day. I mean, we had long periods of time, maybe 30, when we had enough time to play organized softball games and stuff like that. We had, but anyway, Brennan was talking about the self-actualization of certain girls. It brought to mind a classmate of mine by the name of Hilda Linkus. Good old German name, because we grew up in a heavily impacted German area. So, old Hilda. And one of the things we like to do, of course, kids like to be kids and play chase and all that kind of thing. And sometimes all the boys would chase all the girls, and the girls would run and hide in the girls' outhouse, which was, of course, off limits to us. It's not something we could do. So occasionally we'd sit there and we'd grab up some rocks and we'd bounce the rocks off the tin roof of the outhouse. Just this what we did. And Hilda would take grave exception to that. Hilda would walk through a hail of rocks to track you down and rip your eyeballs out with her fingernails. And we all knew that. And so when Hilda came out the door with that look at murderous expression on her face, everybody ran. All the boys ran. Those who knew you did not mess with Hilda. When she had enough, she had enough, and she was going to kick your butt. And that's just the way it was. And and would the teacher give you a spanking? You betcha. I remember a time we were playing chase with the big boys. That's what we called the 6th and 7th graders. The big boys, and that was also part of the fun. We'd pick at them and they'd chase us, and we'd run and hide. And I remember one occasion that 2 of us were captured by one of the big boys, and he locked us in the coal house. And here we are, the coal house. Of course, recess is over, and the teacher is wondering, where are you at? So she comes out, and here we are locked up in the coal house, and she unlocks the door and lets us out, and we get a spanking for not having been in class. But anyway, that is, I could go on and on and on about, spending from dawn to dusk in the creeks and fields and the mountains, and nobody, that was normal. As long as you were home by sundown, there was not an issue. Nobody worried. And you were just as likely, if you were acting up, you were just as likely to get your butt busted by a neighbor as you were by your own family. And that's okay too. That was fine. So, Gigi's Boo, you've been awfully quiet. Do you have anything to contribute to that line of discussion?
Well, I think, like you said, there was a generation. We've raised up a generation to be afraid of everything, and we've told them that it's okay, and we've told them that they shouldn't do this, that they shouldn't do that, they shouldn't say this and all that. I think you let kids alone. I know Gary gets tickled about some things that we did when we were growing up, because we would fight. We had an old man that come around here, and he's just a dirty old man. That's all I can tell you. And every time we'd go out, he'd say real vulgar things to us, and come to find out sometime later he was suffering with some type of dementia. He had an old moped, and he, on the street that we lived on then, we had pretty good coverage around the house. And he would ride by and say ugly things to us. And my daddy took a couple of shots at him one time, and cops knew about him, and he just said, just leave it, just stay away from him. But this particular night, I'd about had enough, and it was summertime, and he was just riding that old moped. I just slipped out, and that old stick that I told you about every woman ought to carry with her, my mama had one. It was a yellow stick. She kept it in the corner room where she could reach and get it if she had to. In the corner of the room is what I meant. I just reached out and I slipped out. I heard him round the corner, and I knew he'd come back around the block. When he did, he come close. Our yard was right next to the road, and he couldn't see it. When he came by, I took that stick and I whopped him in the head, and he wrecked on that moped, and I ran in the house, ran past Mama. She always had ought to been deer clan because I could run like the wind. I threw that stick up in the attic crawl space, how you get into the attic, was jumped into bed by the time he could get up and get everything straight. He came back and hollered through the fence and kept hollering, so Mama went to the door and he said, "One of them little bitches that lives in your house hit me in the head." Mama just throwed that 12-gauge shotgun at it. She pumped it one time. She said, "Nah, this is the bitch that's going to get you right here." And he took off. So you see, you got to stand for something. You got to stand your ground. There's some people who run all over you. Take care of yourself. It don't matter what society says is right and wrong. Take care of yourself. Get your stick and knock them in the head. Pump a 12-gauge shotgun. Do it all. But remember this, always take the road less traveled, and you're more than likely not going to run into any fools. And if you do, they're going to be crazy like you are. So you'll have a good conversation. And I'm just kidding. I love you. I love you all big to my heart. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, that's about it for this week's edition on the Road Less Traveled. This little trip that we were on, as Brenna says, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. So you guys take care and have a great week, and we will catch up with you next time here on the Road Less Traveled at RealLibertyMedia.com. So take care. Good night.